opinion about the Israeli occupation in the occupied Palestinian territory. The ICJ said it's illegal, it should be ended. Settlers should be evacuated. Israel has no sovereignty over the occupied territories, so the concept of self-defense does not apply in the West Bank. Does the Palestinian people have the right to resist occupation the way many of your African countries, including yourself, fought colonialist and foreign domination and foreign intervention? Thank you.
I will answer your question. Thank you, Abdulhamid. I will answer your question using the hat of the President of the Security Council to say that if there is a request for engagement on the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice, of course, based on the rules, we'll be open to ensuring that we allow member states to proceed as requested. In the national capacity, in terms of the importance of the advisory opinion, I will not give you a legal opinion now. I think the International Court of Justice has clearly laid out their view on the issue. But the important bit is that they've asked both the United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council to move forward with modalities. I think that is one aspect that we'll look out for, looking at what engaging with the General Assembly to ensure that there is complementarity and aspects which the Security Council will need to address. I'm sure that will be guided by the members of the Council on how to proceed. Thank you.
Go right ahead. Sorry. Thank you, Nikki. Hi, Ambassador. Carrie Norton from Le Monde and RFI, Radio France Internationale. I was wondering if anyone requested a meeting on Haiti, because we know that the first contingent of Kenyan troops have arrived, but we know also they're in a dire need of vehicles and help and funding. And it looks like the international community is kind of forgetting about Haiti, when I'm very happy to see Sudan on the program of work. And second question, are you planning to evoke or talk about the African missions, like there's the new system of peacekeeping missions funded by the UN, but going through the African Union, and we know that Haiti actually kind of mission was kind of a prototype. So what do you think about it? Are you going to evoke it?
Thank you so much, Karine. On Haiti, to answer your question, yes, the consultations this morning, we had a member state that spoke about the importance to pay attention to development in Haiti. There is no mandated meeting, that's why it's not on the program of work, but certainly if a member state will request for a meeting on Haiti, given the development after the deployment of the Kenyan contingent, I think as the presidency will be certainly open to moving forward with that. On the question of African missions and relating to funding, I think you are really asking a question on Resolution 2719, which is important. We have issues on the agenda for which 2719 will be pivotal, whether you're considering ATMIS adoption or the negotiations ongoing in terms of SAMI-DRC or any other peacekeeping mission that may require resources. I think the resolution was adopted simply to provide the opportunity for the Council to look into 2719 if it's applicable in the context. And our role as President will really to lead the Council to look at it. If I should look at the issue from an A3 plus perspective, as a member of the A3 plus, certainly I think it is important for 2719 to be fully utilized to address some of the challenges we have in the continent. But this has to be done in cooperation and consultation with the rest of the Security Council members.
Thank you. Murad Hashim, Al Jazeera Arabic. More than 165 journalists have been killed in Gaza since October, including 2 Al Jazeera journalists have been killed in direct Israeli attack yesterday. What's what's your position and how this issue should be addressed by the Security Council, specifically regarding the accountability?
Thank you so much. It's really an important question. I recall that when we noted the high fatalities of journalists in Gaza, Sierra Leone spoke on this issue in the council to draw attention to it, that in addition to, of course, protecting civilians, protected persons, journalists should not bear the brunt of the hostilities, and they should be protected. Already we have a solid legal framework or resolutions in the Security Council really underscoring this point. And so your question on accountability would be important to ensure that if protected persons are not protected, as it were, under international law, then there has to be a follow-through. What we can do, and I'm answering this in my national capacity, by the way, what we can do as council members is continue to amplify and highlight the importance for the protections of humanitarian workers and those who are protected under conflict situation, journalists, and this could also include the plight of human rights defenders and those who are offering assistance to civilians in difficult circumstances. And I hope eventually accountability will set in to forestall the continuation of such activities.
Thank you for your briefing. My name is Yu from Kyodo News, Japanese news agency. So I have two questions about your signature event. First, are you ready for any outcome, including like a document? And then second, so why did you choose the topic of Security Council reform as the Security Council? So you have already mentioned partially, but could you make me more comments?
Thank you for the important question. In terms of product, the answer is no, simply because, as I've indicated at the beginning, the negotiations taking place in the UN General Assembly. That's where we have the IGN. But as you know, in the process to get to reform, you need all of the permanent 5 members to agree, and of course, 2/3 majority of member states. There have been expressed support for Africa, some general. I believe the conversation in the Security Council will really lead to specifically rectifying the historical injustice, and we expect really at that high level for clear declaration and support for the rectification of historical injustice. So we'll have an elevated debate. We'll have those who are interested in the issue to speak up, and this will build, it's a good momentum builder to the Summit of the Future. Certainly the Pact of the Future question has been asked, and hopefully when we get to the General Assembly, we'll have some meaningful progress in addition to the progress that we made over time. Thank you again. I think I've answered both questions by this response. Yeah.
Did you? We'll come back. Yeah. And then here, and we'll come back here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Nikki. Ambassador Xu Deju with China Central Television. You've been in the Security Council for a couple of months. So from your national capacity, what do you think is now the biggest problem with the Council? And some people commented, they said the Security Council is one of the most important institutions here to maintain international peace and security. But when it concerned about Palestinian question, it feels the Security Council looks like a model United Nations. What is your response? Thank you.
In my national capacity, thank you. I think the situation which you've described has given the opportunity for Council members to really show the various characteristics or features which reflect our current world. I'll go to the positive. We had the resolution which was co-sponsored by the 10 elected members. It's not monolithic that every elected member will think the same or will have the same interest. But because of the importance of the situation and the need for call for for ceasefire leading to Ramadan, we got all of the 10 elected members to agree to sponsor a resolution. That's a demonstration of unity. And I think our role in the Security Council in national capacity is really to be a bridge builder. We understand that the United Nations is not an organization of like-minded states, and so but you have to bring everyone together. That's the spirit of cooperation. And so I will answer your question in that light, understanding that moving from the basis that we're not a like-minded organization, there has to be the need to build cooperation, ensure the unity of the Council. And we've really adopted a number of resolutions which shows that when called upon to discharge its responsibility, the Council will act, sometimes not timely, and we'll continue to call for implementation. There are various approaches to it in terms of the resolution. And in this context, all that we can do, particularly elected member in Sierra Leone, is to ensure that you bring all members together, and that is the role I think we've played for 7 months and will continue to play for the rest of our tenure in Security Council.
Hi, I'm Dulcie Linebuck. I had a couple of questions. One was back on the ICJ rulings in May. South Africa's ambassador came to the Security Council to deliver all the documentation related to the ICJ rulings for occupied Palestine and Israel, the rulings from January, March, and May, to effectively get the Council to start enforcing those rulings, given that that's the Council's job. So what has it been doing in that regard?
Thank you so much. On the South Africa versus Israel case, my understanding, again answering in my national capacity, my understanding is that there are provisional measures. Of course, provisional measures are binding on the parties, and they should be implemented. And what has happened over time is that South Africa has gone to the court where there has been non-compliance to ask for further orders. There are provisions in the charter that would ask for applications of the various tools within the charter for the Security Council if called upon. I do not think that has been done necessarily. The ICJ is a principal organ of the United Nations. It has really declared itself very clearly on the issue in terms of provisional measures. And the hope is that because it's binding on the parties will comply. What the Council has done over time is to really call on the parties to comply with their obligations under international law, which will include orders of binding orders of the International Court of Justice.
The Council as a whole has called on the parties to carry out these rulings? How have they done that?
I think I will not go into the details of the resolutions, but again, in a national capacity, my appreciation of a council call on compliance with international law, of course, you have to look at the various levels. It includes, of course, binding orders of the International Court of Justice, which is binding on the parties.
Can I ask one more question about the quest for an African permanent seat? So do you anticipate a big announcement at UNGA in September regarding this request or this demand? Thanks.
Thank you. I think that's another important question. So the step-by-step approach, firstly, we'll have the debate on the 12th. We're looking forward to a very successful debate with clear views on rectifying the historical injustice. Second will be a summit of the future, where we'll have in the declaration this language on rectifying the historical injustice, prioritizing Africa and treating Africa as a special case. Post the summit of the future, which is part of UNGA, we had a ministerial meeting in Algeria, that is the African Union Committee of 10 on Security Council reform. And of course, we've been asked to engage in an enhanced way in the intergovernmental negotiations, including the submission of an African model. The belief is that there will be sufficient momentum to really move this issue, which is needed. Next year will be the 80th anniversary at the UN, and I think questions could be asked if we'll have a United Nations at 80 without a permanent seat for Africa.
Again, thank you again. This is Abdul Hamid again. I have a few questions again on Palestine, sir. When countries violate international law, normally there are sanctions like what happened in North Korea, what happened in former Yugoslavia, Iraq, many countries, including your country when Sankuh staged a coup against Muhammad Janah Kabba, who was a UN staff, I know him personally. There was sanctions until the coup failed. Now there is a country, which is a member of the United Nations, violating every piece of international law. Security Council resolutions, General Assembly resolution, ICJ, Human Rights Council, committing atrocities day in and day out against children, women, destroying the cultural system in Gaza, destroying hospitals, attacking children. Every violation you can imagine is being committed as we speak in Gaza. Yet, it's treated just like a normal country, and no one talk about sanctions, no one talk about expelling this country from the UN. What more can be a failure of the international system in dealing with this rogue state called Israel? In the capacity of President of Security Council, I note that Council members have expressed concern on the situation in Gaza, of course, called for, we had the resolution 2735, which is clear on supporting the current efforts to reach a ceasefire and the release of hostages. And so we note that continuing. In my national capacity, I will say that sanctions are part of the myriad of tools within the UN Charter, which the Council could employ. There is a process to it, and I think if there is interest, that process could be activated by a member of the Council. But it is in the Charter and available to Council members. Sorry, may I follow up? I mean, the Security Council keep talking about two-state solution, as you know. The Israeli Knesset voted recently. They will prevent any the establishment of a state in Palestine. They voted. So they said it will be a terrorist state if it's established. So talking about two-state solution, is it possible? Is it viable? Do you think there is any chance to establish a independent, viable, contiguous Palestinian state? Thank you. I can only answer that in my national capacity. And I will refer you to the ICJ opinion, I think, which was very authoritative on self-determination and the two-state solution.
Oh, thank you, Ambassador. My name is Sinan. I'm with Ruda Media Network, and wishing you best of the luck for the month. Secretary General made a statement yesterday, and he said that the international community must work together to urgently prevent any actions that could push the entire Middle East over the edge. So basically, he asked for a diplomatic de-escalation, and I wonder what's your response to this call. And in addition, Iran has been talking about a retaliation against Israel, and also if you have a comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question and the kind words. We had a meeting of the Council yesterday, and I think from the Secretariat perspective, USG was Marie DiCarlo briefed, and we heard from Council members and those who were invited to participate. I think the overall, there's concern in terms of possibility of escalation, but there's been call for restraint, and I think we can only offer support to the words of the Secretary General, given the situation now in the Middle East. But I can only say that Council members are concerned, and of course will continue to pay attention to this issue.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Ambassador Kanu, and I thank the United Nations Correspondents Association and its reporters and all of you who have attended this briefing this afternoon. We will have a transcript of Ambassador Kanu's remarks available. If you would like a copy, we also have copies of the media note that we sent to some of you via email, also available. And so if you are interested in picking up a copy, you can do so from my colleague in the back as you're exiting. Thank you very much for coming this afternoon, and we'll see you some more throughout the month.